What is a CEO? That's a motherfucker in charge.
Think you know me, but you don't be. Better back the fuck up off me. You soft G, I'm the boss B. Tryna double cross me, it's costly. I'm the coldest, and you know this. When I wrote this, I was focused. Now I'm laughing and I'm walking. Ain't got time for the talking. You hoping and wishing that I ain't gonna start with the dissing. You holding and folding. This chance right here is golden. Yeah, I'm the chosen and the broken. Steaming hot and smoking. You choking and coughing. This right here is awesome.
What is a CEO? The Chief Executive Officer? Ha! In most startups, it's more like the Chief Everything Officer.
What is a CEO? It stands for Chief Executive Officer. And essentially, that's just a fancy way of saying the boss.
Chief Executive Officer is the person who is charged with the success of an organization, the person who is responsible for all of the failures, responsible for the successes too, the face of the organization, the one who is making major policy, making major strategic decisions, and kind of trickling down the culture and the mission and the vision of an organization. So I guess long story short, CEO is the big kahuna.
A CEO is a Chief Executive Officer. I would assume they're calling it that because he gets to make executive decisions if need be.
So long definition short, it's the leader of the company in all ways, shapes, and forms.
Let's break it down. Chief Executive Officer. Chief, head honcho. Executive is business. Officer is like commander. So if you're the CFO, you're the head honcho business commander, which might actually be a better name, I think.
I am the CEO at Full Scale, a tech services company with 200 employees worldwide.
Actually, I am the CEO of InnovateHer Incorporated. We're a social enterprise, a for-purpose organization, but I chose CEO because I had a previous boss who told me that even if you are not all about profit, it's really important that you think in terms of profit. And you can think, even though you're a social good organization, you can still think like a for-profit organization. And so I kind of took that with me, which is why I picked that particular title instead of like executive director.
You could call me the CEO, founder, owner, sales guy, bookkeeper, CMO, Chief Mistake Officer, CFO, Chief Failure Officer. I don't think the titles really matter, but if that's your favorite position, then yes.
I am the CEO of Mixtape, which means I gotta hold a lot of people's feet to the fire. Mainly my own.
If I remember correctly from college, the CEO is the Chief Executive Officer. And I am not the Chief Executive Officer, nor do we even have one in our company. We have a president, my brother, and I'm the CFO in charge of the money, the financial officer. And we're both sort of half in charge. We're 50% owners, and so there's no CEO. We still work though.
Am I the CEO? Well, we don't technically have that title in our organization. Heather and I both have chief titles. However, the executive officer is not one of them. I am the chief operating officer, and Heather is the chief marketing officer.
I am not technically the CEO of our company. Kyle and I have different roles. I'm classified as co-founder and CMO. He is classified as co-founder and COO. But I think I'm probably the one who makes the decisions. I'm sure Kyle will have something different to say about that.
Now, if one of us was going to be the CEO, it's me.
I think a good CEO is decisive enough to make tough decisions, but open enough and willing to listen enough to change their mind and listen to feedback. I think a good CEO has some empathy and is able to lead in a way that puts people first. I think that a good CEO has integrity and is willing to roll up their sleeves and do everything with their team, not at their team. And someone who is willing to take the blame and willing to share the credit.
I think there's a lot of different kinds of good CEOs, just like there's a lot of different kinds of good leaders. So I don't think there's just one definition to what makes a good CEO, but I think at the end of the day, it would be someone that's decisive and has good intuition, and knows how to get people in the right position, and knows how to lead, and knows how to serve first and foremost. I think that is what makes a good CEO.
What makes a good CEO? Well, that's definitely a 9 handicap and making your employees fear you from the golf course.
You want someone who is visionary, someone who can see the direction in which the company wants to go and knows which steps to take to divvy out the work to get that done. It's also someone who can listen to the people around them to help guide them in the proper directions and the way to go. You know, I know CEOs across several different industries, and they all do it a little bit different.
When it comes to good CEOs, I think of leaders. I think of decision makers. I think of people that have vision, people that other people want to get behind, and those that have the ability to get people excited about the dream, the vision, and all the stuff that goes on at the company on a daily basis.
I would say some of the characteristics of a good CEO is someone that has vision, has a lot of drive, the ability to make hard decisions. They're a good leader. They inspire people. You have to be able to carry the weight of every decision that gets made in the company. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. So if you can't handle the truth or can't make hard decisions, you're probably not going to be a good CEO.
I think that the CEO role is one of the most beautiful and one of the most horrifying jobs I've ever had. You know, I love having the autonomy and agency to make decisions. I don't love the pressure. You know, every time I fuck up, it's not just me. It's reflective of the whole organization, and it has the potential, because every time I screw up, I affect our ability to serve women. And that, it just breaks my heart, because I'm like, I don't know how to be perfect. I don't know that I would ever want to be perfect. But when we are imperfect, it's our members who take the hit. And that's very scary to me.
I would assume that not all CEO roles are equal. So I can say the CEO role for me is hard, but I don't know about the CEO role at every company.
Being CEO is a challenge for a lot of people due to the levels of versatility, and on some days being able to make decisions about what is the most valuable use of your time. You have to have a strong grasp on what you don't know, and often have a stronger grasp on that than understanding what you do know. That affects decision making and the use of your time. And I've seen a lot of people that have failed in CEO roles because they just aren't able to make decisions that are difficult or sometimes unpopular, and often just don't have a very good sense of what the best use of their time is, as well as the people that work at the company.
The CEO is probably one of the most difficult jobs in the company. You have so much responsibility, and when you really think about it, every employee in the company is affected by the decisions that the CEO makes. So there's a great heavy burden on the CEO. They're not always well liked. Hopefully you've hired the right people that you believe in, that you can count on, that can take those plans to the next level, but also continue to grow the company, continue to elevate the company, continue to give people raises when they deserve it, stuff like that. I don't think the job of CEO is ever easy for anyone. And a lot of people probably make it look easy, but trust me, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a CEO that says this job isn't hard.
I think that the CEO role is very difficult. I think that you are part of the time stuck in an impossible situation. When you're considering all of the facts about a business, all the facets, all of the paths, and you're also in charge of all of the employees and all of the people who are working for you. I mean, you're kind of in an impossible situation of always making the right decision. So I think that the most important role of the CEO is building the team around you, making sure that you have trust, that there's two-way street of trust between you and the people that you bring on, so that you can fully hand off and handle things that and to the people that you know are going to best represent you and the company.
The main role of a CEO is to have an overall management and leadership position across all departments in the company. As the CEO at Full Scale, I sometimes find myself having to bounce back and forth between different departments, projects, or needs, and do something to provide leadership, make decisions, or just help other department managers or leaders with things that they need help with. As I've mentioned, CEO might be chief everything officer. A good CEO is able to keep their finger on the pulse of all of the major components in and around the business.
I think the main role and the role that everything else touches on of a CEO is to set the culture and set the tone. And I think that everything else, your products, your programs, your your health benefit, like all of that shit comes from a place of deep understanding of who you are as an organization. So I think the most important thing that a CEO can do is set the culture, set the tone, set the mission, set the vision, figure out what are we all about and how is that reflected in our work.
What is the role of a CEO? Well, the role of a CEO is for the chief executive officer to completely understand the company, of course, and from a very high level, divvy out the responsibilities and oversee basically the future of the company with all the managers to make sure that they're all doing the right things.
The main role of the CEO is to lead. There's a good chance that as the CEO, you have a lot of people working underneath you that are responsible for making day-to-day decisions. As the CEO, in my opinion, you need to be looking years ahead of where the company should be.
The main role of a CEO is to lead his company and lead his company in every facet of the business. Lead it in culture, lead it in work ethic, lead it in communication, lead it in education, continue to be learning, and serve. Lead and serve, lead and serve. And I think that if you do those things, regardless of how different you are in other areas, I think you'll be a successful CEO.
I think the best advice I could give for being a CEO is work on your leadership skills, listen to the problems that the people that work with you are telling you about, and make sure that those problems turn into a thought process related to the solutions to them. Overall, there's no substitute for experience when it comes to leadership and the CEO role in general. So if you're new to being a CEO, you got to wrap your arms around it. I think if you're new, you can find a lot of guidance, you can find a lot of input, but overall, you got to be able to work through and with the other people at the business. If you fail at doing that, you're probably going to fail as the CEO.
I wish I knew how crazy being a CEO can make you feel at a startup. I think that there's different roles at different places, and structure is so important to success. And you can just feel a little bipolar, a little manic, honestly, when you're doing 100 different things. And so I guess you know what it takes to be a startup founder or a CEO, but it's completely different once you actually do it yourself. I regret nothing, but I wish I had better expectations for what that role was going to look like so I could prepare better.
When it comes to things I wish I knew before I became a CEO, it was maybe that you were the chief everything officer and not as much an executive officer in most cases, meaning it all flows downhill to you. You end up at your startup, if you're the CEO or the founder, having to do it all.
What is something I wish I knew before I became a CEO? I honestly feel like I came into the job with a pretty firm understanding of what I was getting myself into. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew that there were days when it was going to be absolutely agony. I knew that there were going to be days where I would be so crippled by self-doubt that it was really hard to get out of bed. I knew that there would be days that were so beautiful and wonderful and elating that they were going to power me through the next 3 months. I knew all of those things. But knowing and experiencing are two totally different things. And so going through it, I think I have a new appreciation of those expectations and what I was thinking was going to happen. I haven't really been too surprised by my CEO journey. I have been, I guess, humbled by it would be a better word.
It's the L to the A-M to the A-double-R to the M-A, C to the L, yes, I to the N. We do it like this all day. Now what you say that you gon' do? So you tryna get with my crew? Whoa, how the fuck do you figure you can duplicate things that we do? Cause it's the N to the I, C to the E. Yes, we rip flows like this crazily. O-W-L, now can't you see? Like